Podcast 11, in the spirit of elections in my home province and in the U.S., it's the debate edition. At least that's the excuse I'm going to have for why we're having this special podcast.
Go. It works. I mean, go with it.
It's very topical. And
Exactly.
trust me, and it'll never be dated either, because there'll be elections in the future, presumably.
Wow.
Keep our fingers crossed on that one. So, this is going to be a little different from usual. We're going to have 11 questions provided by our esteemed commissioner, Mr. Chris Mofo Ticon. Is this his full name?
Wait, what did you say, Ticon? That's not how you say it.
Mofo Ticon?
I believe it's pronounced Ticon. It's of Spanish ancestry.
That sounds like a bad nickname.
It does sound like it pretty bad. It's like, yeah, it sounds like someone named like Tyrone Converse, and it's like Ticon.
Oh, wow.
So what was I talking
right.
about?
I don't know. We're so sidetracked.
Get back
Alright.
on track here.
Right. So 11 questions that Chris came up with. They were studied by Baldwin, and they're all legal. We know that, obviously, because he's a lawyer, so clearly.
You're getting so sidetracked.
Because he's a lawyer, so anyways, 11 questions. Tyler won the role despite an initial tie, which means I should have won the tiebreaker by alphabetical order, but anyways, that's a whole other argument. So, Tyler will get to go first. When Chris asks the questions, he'll pick his side, and then I will have to pick the opposite, because otherwise it wouldn't really be much of a debate.
Not all questions are just two-sided. Like some of them are choose between three players, or something like that.
It's
Okay.
true.
Very cool.
You just can't pick. You can't pick the same thing in any question.
Yeah.
Because that would be no fun.
It would not be much of a debate. It would
just
be like,
an
let's
agreement.
agree on something. Yeah.
All right, Mofo, we're going to take it to you, and we'll get this started, because this has been the longest off-track intro of all time. So
And
Probably not, actually.
one more thing. I'm going to award a winner after each question, and whoever gets the most wins at the end gets to have like a 2-minute uninterrupted dialogue.
Victory
Voted.
speech. I already had my 2-minute uninterrupted dialogue.
Yes,
So
I cannot.
Prove-
that's
You
the
can talk, you can talk about anything you want. Anything you want to talk about.
I cannot wait to talk about Otis Stone. So
I can't wait
There
to
you go.
talk about how we need to update the site after the TC.
oh no. Oh, Mofo, I'll win this for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's all hope that happens.
All right.
Okay, question number 1. Okay, make sure I don't botch this. Is Eric Bauer the number 1 player you take on a team right now going forward, not named Pierre Lewis? Tyler, go.
I say no, and I say no because David O'Neill is still in the league, and I like Bauer. I mean, he's a great scorer. He just had a huge TC. There's really not much to not like about him. But the problem is that he's still a small forward. His defense still isn't that great. I mean, is there a good chance that he'll be the next best scorer in EBL for the next 10 seasons? Definitely, probably. He could pass Pierre Lewis, Tyree, whatever. But I could see him ending up more like a Tyree than I could an elite, all-around, finals-making difference player like Pierre Lewis is. And I think David O'Neill is still young enough and so much of just an intangible, has everything point guard that I would obviously go with him. And if Purvis were a little bit younger, I'd probably go with him over Bauer too. But I think if David O'Neill is still in the league, and I just can't imagine picking a small forward who has B-plus defense over probably the best point guard besides Purvis that we have in the league. I mean, point guard's the most important position, and Bauer's still completely unproven when it comes to playoff success, finals success, just everything like that.
All right, well said. Now, Haas, the rebuttal.
I guess if I couldn't take Pierre Lewis, then I would definitely take Eric Bauer. He's 21 years old. He's clearly proven himself as an offensive player. And also, he's very efficient in his scoring. While his 3 points are a little lower percentages than I like, he shot 48% from field goals, which is very good. His defense is improving every year. He can rebound better than it looks like, given that his size and he's playing small forward. And I think his defense eventually will be just as good as all the elite defenders, and he could end up being the highest scorer in the history of the league, especially on the Bucks team where he won't have to share as much of the scoring load with Frazier declining and the other options aren't as strong. So I think he'll lead the league in scoring for many years, and while defense is obviously really important, having the top scorer in the league year after year after year is a recipe for many easy successes in your future.
Well said.
All right, that was a good comeback by Hodge. I think Tyler made some very good points about David O'Neal. I kind of overlooked him with the question, but I think Hodge really, I mean, you're making it tough on me already.
Good.
Point, I think.
I think Hodge made some very good points about Bauer, about being the best scorer in the league going forward. However, he's not proven that yet. He's only averaged 22 points a game last year. So then he didn't improve in training camp in scoring. So you can't really say he's the best scorer going forward. So I'm going to award the first question to Tyler.
As it should be. All the points to me.
Yeah, I knew it was over once you said David O'Neal because that's exactly what I would have said had I not been pretty much forced to pick Bauer or look through the entire league history of players to try and find someone else. And I couldn't think of anybody better to take than O'Neal anyway. So
Right.
All right, now question number 2. Hodge goes first here.
Yep.
Thank God.
Okay. Is Omar Thomas the best big man in EBL post training camp? Yes or no, and explain why.
I don't think he's the best big man, and not just because he went down in TC, but I also feel that while his defense is obviously still good because it's rated as an A, his lack of blocks is always going to bother me a little bit. He doesn't rebound as high a level as someone that I would consider the best big man in EBL should do, and just looking at, say, Francisco Page last year, obviously it helped that he was on a terrible team, but historically he's always rebounded very high. He scored just as much, if not more than Thomas, and his play in the playoffs last year against the best defensive big man in some people's minds in Kendall Marshall, he destroyed Marshall one-on-one. And this is the best defensive, arguably the best defensive big man in the league, and he destroyed him one-on-one. And Thomas didn't get out of the first round and had, better players around him. So I think Page is the best big man. He's obviously great on defense. He gets blocks, and it seems like in his one-on-one series, he's almost unstoppable. I mean, he played the best defender you could put on him, and he just ripped him to shreds. So that's why I'm saying no.
All right.
Omar Thomas is the best center in EBL, and you can make arguments for Page like you did. You can make arguments for Kenneth Marshall, but what it comes down to is Omar Thomas is 23. I mean, he doesn't lack anywhere. Francisco Page has major flaws in handling. Omar Thomas has a little bit of an outside game. He's got A defense. It's great defensively. It's not one of those A defenses where he lets up points or whatever you want to explain it to it. The lack of blocks aren't an issue at all for me. Because, I mean, if you surround him with shot blockers like Jason Richardson is, and proven guys like that, then the reason Omar Thomas's defense is so high and his shot blocking is so low is because everything else has to be high, whether it's strength and post defense, perimeter defense, whatever. It just means Omar Thomas has more defense, is more of a shutdown guy. And you used the argument when you were talking about Omar Thomas that he didn't get out of the first round when he had better help around him. Then who? Because Francisco Page had Pierre Lewis and whoever the fuck else. You don't need anyone else. You just need Pierre Lewis. And Kenneth Marshall had Tyree, Sip, Perez. Omar Thomas had who? Rob Andrew, an unproven what's his name? Royce Lopez. Yeah, right. Someone who had just come off his first good TC and was just named first starter. He had no small forward. His power forward was a rookie. I mean, what it comes down to is Omar Thomas single-handedly carried the 76ers with Rob Andrew played well last year. There's no denying that, but he's just no Pierre Lewis. So between those two, those are like the only two players on the team that had any experience in doing anything. And for them to even make the playoffs shows exactly how good Omar Thomas is.
Very, very strong argument there. Going back to what Hodge said, I think the Page not getting, I mean, Page first round argument, it makes no sense because Page didn't get out of the first round either, like
That's
Tyler
true.
just said. But he did destroy Marshall, which is important. Certainly wasn't his fault that Denver lost. It's because they really have no talent besides Pierre Lewis.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
that argument does make sense in that regard. But and I really agree with Tyler when he says about Omar Thomas, his A defense and lack of blocking not being a problem, because that makes him like probably the best big man defender in EBL overall besides blocks. But I think the Hodge made the most sense in this argument. He got to make the first points home because of the roll we go here, and I'm going to award that one to Hodge. Second question to Hodge.
Absolutely.
Yay!
So we're all tied at 1.
Oh, I forgot to mention that Omar Thomas couldn't beat Yi Wan, which is just sad because Yi Wan.
I'm pretty sure Omar Thomas beat down Yi-Wan. I just think it's the
Probably.
76ers.
I just remember Page had a huge series, and Thomas, I think he underperformed a little bit.
Yeah, he might have. I mean,
All right. Here's a pretty open question for you guys.
Good.
Tyler gets to go first.
good.
Even
What
better.
team is the biggest threat this season to the Spurs three-peating?
Oh, you're gonna have to give me a second on this one. Hold on. I don't know. Spurs look so good. All right, the biggest threat to the Spurs this year. I'm gonna pick one out of the dark because that's what I like doing. I'm gonna choose the Phoenix Suns and make Jerry super happy because he's gonna listen to this. He's always does. I just think after the training camp that Henry Moore had, and the huge one that Ross Falk had, apparently he decided to just look like an elite player after I traded him. That's cool. And Blackshear off the bench with his A defense, assuming that's the route they go with Brunn starting. And Bill Luck. I think Bill Luck was a huge steal for them because he sat in free agency forever and no one bid on him. And Jerry just pretty much walked right up and was like, all right, yeah, I'll take him back.
MSC bid the mid-level, so he matched that.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, either way, so
Just
he
want to
probably
give a shout out.
shout out to MSC, good FA. But they just had like a great TC, and I think the teams that collectively have a great TC together always get a little bit overlooked because they weren't. Not much changed about them besides their attributes. But I think he made a really good move in trading for Falk. I think Luck's going to be huge for them. Bond, hopefully he can go back to the way that he was playing for a while because I know he had a down season last season and he was looking like he could be the next elite power forward for a while there. And he's 28, his window's closing a little bit, but if they can get a little bit out of him, I don't know. I think the Spurs are a top level team, and their training camp this year just blew me away. But I think it's going to be a team that sneaks up on people like the Suns. I can't think of anyone else that we haven't. I don't know. This isn't the strongest argument. Hodge is probably going to win this one, but I like the Suns. Is what I'm saying.
All right.
If Falk can
All
step
right.
it up.
Okay, Hodge, go ahead.
I also like the Suns as usual, but that's not the team I'm going to pick for obvious reasons. I'm going to take the not so creative pick and pick the LA Clippers as a team that I think that can beat them. I think that the front court of the Spurs is obviously Heron is great, but you don't know what you're going to get with Yermakov or Tim Craig if he's starting. And I think the Clippers have great scoring from Yaneko and Sun Ma. Leto and Austin can compete with any backcourt, including Hamilton and Harrison. And, obviously they're both very good. Larry Austin, we know what he can do. Ricardo Leto has won in the playoffs before. And I think while Tony Ross isn't a great defender, neither is Joe Brake. So that's a pretty even balance. And I really like the depth that the Clippers have now with Blodgett. He's an excellent backup who's also proven he can play at shooting guard last year when he was on Boston and played at shooting guard and did really well for them in that role. Plus they have a guy like Dustin Slayton. They've added Perry Jones to add even more inside scoring. And they're just a very deep team. They have a starting five that I think can easily match up with the Spurs, if not maybe has a better starting five than the Spurs. And with Hamilton also dropping down a little bit in handling, it could slow down the Spurs a little bit, and against a guy like Austin, who's still a great ball handler, I think the Clippers are well built for the playoffs. They have good depth. They have 5 really good starters, and I think this could be the year that they get past the Spurs. I mean, went to 7 games last year, and they've gotten better also. In addition, just as the Spurs have, obviously they've gotten better too. But I feel like the Clippers have gotten a little bit better, and this could be the year to get past them and march on to winning a title.
All right, Tyler, I feel like you made a good argument with the Suns, but the one thing you didn't do and the one thing that Hodge did was compare your team against the Spurs.
Yeah, I know. So Hodge
did a really, really good comparison, comparing like the position by position, and you just talk about how good the Suns were, not how they matched up against the Spurs. So I'm awarding this one to Hodge.
Absolutely. Hodge started doing that, and I was like, damn, I messed up.
Woo!
All right,
I do like
Hodge,
the Suns, though, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, Suns do look strong after that. They had a huge training camp.
Yeah, they really did.
Especially Henry Moore looks like he's like in one more TC, and he'll be one of the best. Especially if his inside can even go up to like a C+.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, forget it.
He's getting there.
All right. Oh, wait. Oh, damn. I was going to transition because there's a question about Henry Moore, but not till later. Ah, damn.
You could just rearrange the order.
No, we can go out of order.
That's okay. Hodge goes first. Hodge goes first here. Hodge is first. This is a choice of 3 people.
Ooh, 3 people.
Which young point guard would you rather have going forward from this point on? Royce Lopez, Josh Grundy, or Gary Hamilton?
Ooh.
Royce Lopez, Josh Grundy, Gary Hamilton. Okay, let me just look them up, even though I know them pretty well by now, obviously. But
yeah.
What team is Grundy on? Toronto?
Right.
Yeah, he is.
He went up in handling in training camp.
Yeah, he looks pretty good.
Lopez went up in like handling and defense.
This is a tough one. All right. I guess I'm not going to start badmouthing the ones I don't pick right away because that's just cheap.
Ill-spirited.
Yes, it's ill-spirited. Okay. You saying which player or which to play as point guard? Which point guard?
As a point guard.
Okay.
Which player? I mean, whatever you want to argue. Which one of the 3? Which one of the 3 would you rather have going forward?
Okay.
Any variety.
It was tough to pick, but it actually wasn't really tough when you think about it. I'm gonna take Gary Hamilton. I mean, it really shouldn't be that tough considering the fact he's won back-to-back playoff MVPs and titles. But his handling dropping is a little bit of a concern. I just have to bring that up. But he's such a proven winner, and he just wins. That's what he does. His scoring has improved, even though his percentages were a little bit lower last year, but I think they'll bounce back. I think his assist to turnover, obviously it looks bad last year, but that's because he was playing at shooting guard at some point. He's 23 years old, so he's got tons and tons and tons of years left. I mean, maybe one less year than the other 2 options that you have. I think that while his handling is listed as a B-, he'll still probably get maybe a 10-3 or a 9-2.5 ratio of assists to turnovers. His scoring could be better than ever this year after a big TC. And he's obviously just very good on defense, and it seems like whenever he's been matched up with another point guard in the playoffs, at least the last 2 years, he's won. And he's obviously played some good point guards. He wins. And unfortunately, the other 2 guys can't say that they've won any titles, and they have one playoff series win between the 2 of them. So I'm going to pick Gary Hamilton as my pick.
All right, Tyler.
I'm about Josh Grundy. I'm all on the Josh Grundy bandwagon, and his TC just helped me prove that point. I liked him last year. I said he should have, if he would have hit free agency, he would have hit a lot of maxes, and I don't know, just the playoff run that he went on with hardly anyone else around him was just phenomenal to me. I mean, we look at Gary Hamilton, and yeah, he's a proven winner, but he has Andrew Harrison, who lights it up more than anyone else in the playoffs on the Spurs. And Harrison just kills it every postseason. And there's Joe Brake. There's his big men are solid defensively with Heron and Craig. I mean, Hamilton has a lot around him. Grundy has nothing, and was, I mean, one of the playoff MVPs last year, even if he couldn't technically get it because he didn't win the finals. I just think that Grundy with his handling, that's a big area of concern for me with Hamilton, is that his handling is so bad. And it's also worrying to me that whenever the CPU does the roster, I know the CPU is not the smartest person in the world, or machine, whatever you want to say, but, they always take Hamilton off point guard and move him to shooting guard or small forward and have Harrison play point guard. Yeah. So that just seems a little bit concerning to me that even the CPU thinks that, Hamilton's handling is an issue and Harrison should be doing it. I don't know. I obviously I like Hamilton. I would be an idiot now if I still continued to hate on him like I used to. But I still think he'd be better suited for like a shooting guard, small forward position with his size and his lack of handling. And I think that his proven success at point guard, I mean, it can only continue for so long if his handling keeps dropping. I mean, what happens if it drops to C+? You still start him at point guard just because he's won there? I mean, I don't know. It's just Grundy, he's great defensively. He's got a not bad handling for a point guard, so he has the intangibles too. He's a great scorer, and his, I don't know. It's just a big thing that his career average in turnovers is 1.7. Yeah, I mean, even his rookie year, he only averaged 1.9. I just think that Grundy is going to be one of the elite level point guards moving forward, especially after this training camp. So,
all right, first off, Hodge, he made the obvious pick, but he argued it very well on why he would take Hamilton over the other two guys. So, good job.
Yeah.
And Tyler,
he took my other guy I would have took after.
Yeah.
So.
Tyler, your problem is that you spent probably 75% of your argument talking about Gary Hamilton, not why Josh Grundy's good. So I'm going to have to word that one to Hodge because you said a few too many I don't know. You said you talked about Gary Hamilton way too much. You didn't praise Josh Grundy until your final 30 seconds. So that one goes to Hodge.
All right, guys, I got this. Comeback time.
And you know what? I would have said that also. He's a lot taller than Hamilton, which helps a lot.
Oh, I don't care about height.
Yeah, height's not that big of a deal for point guards.
I start Otis Stark. He's like 5'4",
bit.
so.
All right, Tyler, here's your chance because you had you get to go first.
I know. I got 2 in a row on a loss.
This is kind of a retro one. So pull up Denver and pull up Atlanta.
All right.
So you're prepared.
Atlanta.
I don't really see how Atlanta would ever be relevant to anything, but
Westbrook, I assume.
Yeah, this is something I've read about in the chat, like people comparing these two guys. Who has had a better EBL career in your mind? Kyrie Irving or Russell Westbrook?
Oh.
Combining everything: playoff performance, defense, handling, everything.
All right.
I think we know who I'd probably pick, but
Tyler gets to go first.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, hold on, give me a second.
Hodge has to pick the opposite.
So if I had to choose who's had a better overall EBL career,
yes.
I think the obvious pick here is Russell Westbrook because if you look at his numbers, they're phenomenal. However, I think the intangibles go to Kyrie Irving, and that's who I'm going to go with. He's won 4 championships, one more than Russell Westbrook, and you could say, well, he did those 2 in Denver with Pierre Lewis, but Westbrook had those 2 with the Lakers where Karan was really leading the team there. So, I mean, there's arguments to be made. I think the 2 championships with Orlando are the more impressive thing for me because on that one Orlando team, Kyrie was the anchor of that team. I mean, his assists were really high, his turnovers were low, and his defense was phenomenal. His defense...
Do you mean 2019, the second title?
The second title, yeah. The first one, though, when was the first one?
14.
Yeah, that was the one with all the young guys, right? I mean, he didn't really have too much around them. Okay,
yes.
So I'm still right in thinking that. JB always makes a stupid argument, Kyrie Hall of Fame, and he says it all the time, and it's annoying. But he really has a point here that Kyrie has had a really underrated career in EBL. I mean, whatever team he's been on, they haven't won despite him, like some players have. They've won with him and because of him. I think those 2 titles in Orlando where he was a 20-point per game guy and Orlando really needed him to step up in the playoffs, and he did. They wouldn't have won those titles if they didn't have Kyrie at point guard. I mean, you can make an argument, well, if they had a better one. I mean, Chris Paul maybe, but they didn't. They had Kyrie and they won, and he has 4 championships. He has lists of accomplishments. I don't see how you can argue Westbrook. I mean, I don't know. I'm stuttering a lot. This sucks, but Kyrie just he was the anchor of those two Orlando teams. If you even forget the Denver, if you even just toss the Denver ones aside, the Orlando ones are what I'm looking at, and I don't see how Westbrook compares to that because he won with Durant and he won with Karan and whatever, and Kyrie won with Leto and like no one else.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Hodge, go ahead.
I think at no point during Kyrie's career did I think he would win the MVP of the league during the regular season. Whereas Westbrook, I think, could have won maybe a couple MVPs if he wouldn't have been on teams with, say, Kevin Durant or Karan Iverson or Brandon Knight. Irving only has one more title, which ultimately, after this many years, doesn't really impress me as much. I found Westbrook, his years with the Thunder were all excellent. He always produced like tons of points. He won a title as a point guard and as a shooting guard twice. With the Grizzlies, a lot of people don't really, I don't know if they don't remember or whatever, but he led that team to the finals, and he wasn't like the second guy that time. He was the guy on that team, and he got them to the finals. Then, of course, he went to the Lakers. He won 2 titles there. And I think that while he was, I guess in some ways you could say he was always the second banana behind, Durant or Iverson or, whoever he was with. I think Irving had one title as the guy, and Westbrook could have probably had more titles. He could have definitely won more MVP awards if he would have been the sole great player on his team before 2024 with the Hawks, which is about the first time he was like the top go-to guy other than the years with the Grizzlies. He was consistently an all-league first-team player, and I know that Kyrie was a great defender, obviously shut down a lot of great point guards, but Westbrook wasn't exactly a slouch on defense. He shut down plenty of guys. And he beat a Carmelo Anthony-led Denver team for OKC's title that they won. So I think that while Irving obviously won a lot of titles, I think Westbrook was in a whole hell of a lot of playoff games, won a lot of series. He's been to a bunch of finals himself. On 3 different teams he's been to the finals. His stats are obviously impeccable and it's hard to compare a point guard and a shooting guard, obviously, in their stats because it's different things with assists and all that. But I think that even though Westbrook might have been the second guy on all of his teams, if that's the second guy, then there's no other better second best guy in history of the league.
All right, a few things. I feel like you both left out some things. Tyler, for some reason, you completely ignored Kyrie Irving's biggest strength, which was defense.
No, I mentioned his defense a few times.
No, you did not. You did not mention his defense. I listened. Hodge is the only one who mentioned it. And then Hodge, you said that in 2016 that Westbrook was the guy in Memphis. That's just a lie because they had Brandon Knight, who was like nearly won MVP that year. So he was never the number one guy on a playoff team. And one thing about Kyrie that you could argue that it makes him better than Westbrook is he has a better list of like player of the games, double-doubles, player of the months, all that stuff. But as far as the arguments that were laid out here, I'm going to give it to Tyler slightly because he just made an overall better argument. Even though you may disagree on who's better, I think he argued why Irving might be better than Westbrook, better than Hodge did.
And pity points because I'm losing, so.
No, I wouldn't hand out.
That's the way I'm going to look at it.
I wouldn't hand out pity points. You know me.
I'm just trying to make Hodge feel better.
All right. Okay, now question 6. Hodge gets to go first here. This is a current question about 2 of my favorite players in EBL.
T. Jones and T. Jones?
I bet it's Terrence Jones. I bet
he's one of them, yeah. All right, Hodge, you go first. Which player is more beneficial to their team's success this season? Derek Favors or Terrence Jones?
Derek Favors or Terrence Jones? All right, 1 second. Well, I think just based off of last year, I'm going to have to go with Terrence Jones. the Memphis Grizzlies won 60 games, whatever they won, 65 games last year. They were the top seed. They looked completely unstoppable. They had stretches where they must have won like 30 games in a row. Terrence Jones was injured in the playoffs, obviously. He missed the first round series, and they lost to a Utah Jazz team that had, I don't know, the corpse of Lou Nairn was their best player. The Pacers had Derek Favors, who had an excellent year, but he was also on a very balanced team. I think he was maybe the third best starter, maybe not the third, second best starter on his team, the third scoring option. He was matched up against, I don't even know who the power forward was for Toronto, somebody that was probably vastly inferior to Derek Favors.
Josh Mulligan.
Josh Mulligan. I bet he wishes he had a mulligan on that series. But and he lost in the first round. He also lost in their first round, but he was in that game. And this was on a very good team, excellent 5 starters. They had bench, they had no injuries that I can remember off the top of my head. And they lost to a team that was basically Josh Grundy and some good backups, but nothing compared to what Memphis had when they won 60-plus games. And I think that just shows the value of Jones, because if you take him out, you're losing your backup center, your backup power forward, your backup everything. And even if he had good third stringers, there's almost no backups that can produce the same way that Jones produces for your team. He's got excellent handling for a guy of his size. I think that might be his most underrated attribute is when you look at his assist to turnover ratio, it's very strong for someone that's not a traditional point guard. And even better, when you lose his 10 rebounds a game, it kills your team. That was it. They had no other rebounding when he was gone. And if you take out Terrence Jones, you saw exactly what happens to Memphis. And if you take out the Pacers, they already lost that series anyway. So, that's why I think Terrence Jones is better.
Tyler, go ahead.
What it comes down to for me is if the Memphis lost T. Jones, is he irreplaceable? And the answer is no. Even though they didn't do so well last year in the playoffs without him, I still think they could get by without Terrence Jones. If the Indiana Pacers lost Derek Favors, there's no one that could start a power forward right now for them and do anything. Barnett is terrible on defense. Pena is terrible on defense. Coleman just has hardly any skills left whatsoever at the age of 33. And I know Derek Favors is 34, but he's still one of the best big men in EBL. He's going strong. Last season he averaged 22 and 11.5 with 3 blocks a game. And it's remarkable how consistently good and strong he has stayed. And his defense, too. He just shuts down other power forwards. And, Terrence Jones is definitely good. You can't make an argument against him anymore, but I can definitely make an argument that Derek Favors means more to his team, because Terrence Jones is still a backup. He just provides depth, which is hugely important. But if Favors goes down, they have a gigantic hole, and they're missing probably their second, third best player on the team right now. Especially with Johnny O'Brien's defense. I know it's A- on paper, but he's never been a strong defender. They really have to have Favors anchoring down the paint. Otherwise, people are just going to run through him. It was a great move by Moron to get Favors, when he did a few seasons ago. And I don't think they would have made as big of a run in the regular season if they didn't have him. And I know Purvis is helping and brings out the best in them, but I think those two are a deadly combo. And I don't think Purvis and Johnny O'Brien or Purvis and Thomas without Favors would be even nearly the same. So,
all right. I know my love of T. Jones is obvious, but I went into this question knowing pretty much who I would take in this situation. I think Tyler just sold me completely on Favors. Because with the argument that if Favors were to leave Indiana would not be very good. While if T. Jones were to leave Memphis, it would probably still be a playoff team.
Right.
That's just what it comes down to. And Tyler did a good job arguing that. So we're all tied up here. Tyler gets the point.
Aww. Johnny O'Brien's not that bad. You could have moved him to power forward and put Coleman starting in some other shenanigans.
Yeah, and then he would have been in the lottery.
Coleman.
Wow.
Oh, Coleman. He's 6'8", and he just
The
has
Grizzlies'
no
backups
offensive
suck,
skills.
though. The backups other than Jones are terrible. If you took him out, he'd have no backups.
Yeah, but he'd still make the playoffs. He still has enough talent to make the playoffs. And that was the question: who's going to be more beneficial to their team's success?
I mean, Marcus Smart, Kyle Wiltshire, Wanna Bale. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It would be bad, but
It would be the worst thing in the world.
I don't think so. Bynum still can play.
Be worse than the Nazis. Okay, that's how bad it would be.
Oh,
All right.
wow.
So Hodge went first there. Now Tyler goes first.
Yes.
This is kind of a current question, kind of a looking forward question. Another Indiana question too, for some reason.
Goddamn Terrence Jones.
That's good. Another point guard question too. I love point guards, I guess. Which point guard would you rather have going forward for the next 3 seasons? Rodney Purvis or David O'Neal? Why they consider the 2 of the 3 best players in the league right now?
Yep, absolutely. If I had to pick a point guard for the next 3 seasons, it would easily be Rodney Purvis, and there's no doubt in my mind on this. If I had to pick a point guard for the next 10 years, it would be David O'Neal. But for the next 3, it is easily Rodney Purvis. I mean, he's the best player in EBL right now. Screw Pierre Lewis. It is Rodney Purvis. Well, he's still great, but Rodney Purvis he does it all, and he makes everyone around him better. They made the playoffs last year with Dorian Finney-Smith starting a small forward. And you can say what you want about, well, he was a role player, he has his defense and everything. It's still Dorian Finney-Smith, and he's never been good ever in his career. He's constantly an MVP candidate. He's constantly regarded as the best point guard in the league. He's constantly an all-league first team. He's triple-doubles 50 throughout his career. He has 450 double-doubles. His career average for assists per game is 10. Even including his first 2 seasons where he averaged less than 9. His career point per game average is 23.2. And his turnovers aren't the worst thing in the world when you consider his assists. And his shooting percentages have always been great. And his defense is shut down. His defense is stellar defense. O'Neal's is good too, but it seems Rodney Purvis he shuts down the opposing point guard and he makes the rest of his team better. And if I had to pick a person for the next 3 years going forward of any position, I would take Rodney Purvis over everyone, just for the things that I've seen him do. He can fit a balanced offense. He can fit an outside offense. If he were the best player on your team and you didn't have much else around him, you could still be considered a playoff team just because of how good Purvis would do. And I'm not sure if I could say the same thing with David O'Neal after seeing the Lakers last season and the season before, and the way they struggled with O'Neal as the main focal piece.
All right,
okay.
Go ahead.
I think a good selling point for David O'Neal is you're talking about making your players better around you. He managed to get 11 assists a game on a Lakers team that, frankly, before the last season was awful. He had no one else could score. Basically, the only reason they'd ever score is because he would have to create shots. In addition, he obviously scored, 25 points a game himself, which is very impressive from the point guard position for a guy that is probably a better passer than as a scorer. I think with the Pistons, especially the year before, he led that team to the first overall seed, and I know they lost in the second round of the playoffs, but you can't really put all the blame on him. And you took him away from that equation, and a year later, Detroit's in last place. Dead last. And they have almost essentially the same players. I also think O'Neal is still getting better every year, and I know Purvis is he's not declining super rapidly, but 3 years from now, we've seen players just as good as Purvis, and then in 3 years, they could be done, nothing. Whereas O'Neal, there's no way in hell he's going to be, at worst, he's the same as he is now in 3 years, and I think he'll just get better and better. He's not even in his prime yet, and some people could argue he's the best point guard in the league. I think that Let me see. Let me check out some other statistics here. Well, I mean, I find their stats match up pretty evenly, but you have to consider that David O'Neal's stats were with an awful Lakers team, while Purvis's stats were with a great Pacers team, and he lost to Josh Grundy, so his amazing shutdown defense was not really so good when he played against another elite point guard. Whereas O'Neal played fine in his 2 playoff series with Detroit, and that's not why they lost, because he couldn't shut down the opposing point guards that he faced. So that's why I would rather have O'Neal in the next 3 years.
All right, that was probably the most competitive argument so far. You both made great points.
It's easy when they're both really good players.
Yeah. I feel like Tyler, you made some good points about Purvis, but I think Hodge, you argued against yourself a little bit at the end there. You said O'Neal put up his stats on a bad team and Purvis put up his stats on a good team. Well, isn't Purvis putting up those stats on a good team more impressive than O'Neal putting up those stats on a bad team?
Not his assists.
The assist is a very good point. I agree, but I feel like Tyler made the case for Purvis a little bit better than you made it for O'Neal, so Tyler gets the point.
I mean, what it comes down to for me is, you said if you take O'Neal out of the Detroit team, they're a lotto team. But Lakers were a lotto team with O'Neal.
Yeah, that was a good argument.
I don't know. I really like Purvis is what it comes down to. So that wasn't an issue for arguing for me.
If it were me, I would take O'Neal, but that's just me. I'm not in the argument.
Well, I love them both, obviously.
But you made the Purvis argument very well.
If I were given a choice between them, I would probably just flip a coin. So.
Yeah, it seems like pretty much a win-win.
I know.
All right, here's a question that might hit Hodge close to home here. Is Tyreke Evans still capable of being an elite starting point guard at the age of 37?
Oh.
Is it me goes first?
Yes, you go first.
Can I know his defense at point guard?
Yes, it's A-.
It's A-. I'm gonna say. Jeez. I'm gonna say yes. I know he's old. Obviously, he's 37 years old, but he still has that A- defense. Sometimes his handling has looked this bad before, but historically, he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. I mean, he hasn't turned it over more than 2 times since they're playing with the Rocks in the Stone Age of 2013. He's a great playmaker, and his scoring at point guard it's like unmatched in history. It's like he's almost guaranteed to score 30 points a game. Will he score 30 points a game this year? I don't know. Probably not, but I think he'll probably be able to average a 25 or 26, maybe 9.5 assists to 2 or so turnovers. He'll still be a pretty good defender, and I mean that's elite stats. If you can score 25, if you can get 25-9 a game, in my mind you're still an elite point guard in this league, and I think he's capable of doing that. If he plays a point guard, I think he's done as a shooting guard. I never really liked him much at all as a shooting guard. It's not what his position is. I mean, you could just look at any season. If you just compare any season where he played shooting guard to one as a point guard, everybody knows that he is a point guard. And I think despite his age and advancing years, that he'll still put up the numbers of an elite point guard, in my mind at least, of what I count as an elite point guard.
All right. Tyler, go ahead.
I say no, and I'm not even picking no because I have to. I'm picking no because that's honestly and truly how I feel. I don't think that he can be an elite point guard at all anymore. And the problem with Tyreke now is that he's lost a little bit too much. I know his defense goes back up to A- a point guard. I know that he's still an elite scorer or whatever, but it was really a troubling sign for me when I saw Boston do better last year without Tyreke than they were doing with Tyreke. And you can make the argument that he was at shooting guard and that was the issue, but I really think Tyreke has lost a step here. It's hard for me to make a clear-cut argument that he won't because he hasn't been a point guard in about 4 or 5 seasons, I think. So, I think 2022 with the Bulls was the last time he was an actual point guard.
He was with the Wizards, too. He was with the Wizards. before he got traded.
Oh, yeah. And then he got moved once he got traded. But, I mean, the Wizards weren't anything special with Tyreek at point guard. The Bulls weren't, I don't know. It's just, he'll still be a good point guard. That's for sure. But I think if he goes up against the Pierre Lewis, or not the Pierre Lewis's, the Rodney Purvises, the David O'Neills, pretty much anyone who's considered an elite level point guard, he would get burned. And while I still think he'll be a good point guard, I can't consider him an elite level because I don't think he can play with those guys. I don't think if you put him one-on-one with David O'Neill's not just going to destroy him. And I think David O'Neill will just shut him down. Same with Purvis, same with any of these other guys. I think that Boston will be a good team. I think Evans will do decently. But for me to call him an elite level point guard when he hasn't played point guard in a few seasons and Boston was better literally without him than they were with him last year. When he got injured, that's when Boston made their rise. I just think that there's all the signs that Tyreek's kind of lost a little bit. So I don't know. I can't call him an elite level point guard anymore.
All right. I feel like Tyler, you mentioned last year with when he got hurt, but like you said, he played shooting guard there. So I'm just throwing that out because it's not even relevant to the question about him doing better without. Plus they didn't do that much better without him because they were the 8th seed and then they got swept in the playoffs without him. So, and also Haj, you did a really good job of presenting some facts, while Tyler you just gave your opinion a lot. You didn't really present any facts to back up your opinion on this subject.
Yeah,
so.
it's hard to find facts to back up that.
Yes, exactly. That's why Haj.
That's why I said he's probably going to be elite still.
Yeah, because the last time we saw, and like his ratings haven't gone down, which is the best indicator that he could still be an elite point guard.
And his percentages are still really good, also. So.
And also, Tyler, you didn't mention the one huge thing that's hanging over his head, which is the injury bug. Like last year, he got hurt for the season. And he's just as old this year. He could get hurt again.
Yeah,
you didn't mention that.
Yeah, I know.
So Haj gets that one.
All right.
Yeah.
We're all tied up. This is
Evans
the best
wins.
of 3 now.
That's always good.
This is the best of 3. 3 questions left.
Oh.
All right. Tyler goes first here. Okay. Who do you think will have the better EBL career, Tim Drake or Henry Moore?
Ooh. Give me a
Very
second look.
similar players right now.
Hold on 1 second. I'm looking at them. I say Henry Moore. I think Henry Moore will be the better point guard or better player in general in EBL going forward. I think Tim Drake, he's obviously has the age. A lot of people, he had the first few great TCs. Everyone wanted to call him immediately going to be a superstar. But I just think he's struggled when he's played. And I know he's young. I know he's still rising. But Henry Moore has actually done decently if he can get his turnovers down, which his handling went up. I don't think it'll be an issue there anymore, hopefully, at least. I mean, you can't really predict that. Drake, they're very similar players, which makes this really hard to argue with, but I think Moore was born into a better situation. I mean, with Ross Falk around them, Brunn, Bond, Luck, I know you can't call him a quality player because of who's around him, but I think Moore will give us a chance to showcase his skills more than Drake will immediately, and I think that'll help his case for at least the first few seasons. And the problem with Drake is that he just hasn't looked anything special in the time that he has played. I mean, he's done decently, but just not anything that screams that his attributes are ever going to matter more than Moore's. I think Drake's going to end up being more of like a Chris Martin kind of player, as weird as that is to say, unless he substantially goes up. I just think that Tim Drake, I mean, Moore's gone through 3 training camps now. Drake's only gone through 2. But Drake still has B+ handling, whereas Moore is up to A already, and his rebounding is a little bit better. there's just not much to go on to compare them. But Drake started in 78 games last season, and he only has 6 double doubles and 2 player of the games. Henry Moore only started in 81 last year and barely played the year before, so I don't even count that. And he has 23 double doubles and 5 players of the game, and just his raw career highs look a little bit better than Drake's do, and that's really all I can go with right now. So I'm going with Henry Moore.
All right. I think Tim Drake will be better because first of all, he was 17 last year, which is obviously I don't think he was ready to start last year, but he did have an excellent TC, and he had, for someone of that age, he had excellent attributes. Obviously, the team on Detroit around him is very young. I think there's still a lot of talent there with guys like Trammell, who's become a great defensive player, Scott Duncan, who's obviously got tons of talent. It's once they figure out where exactly to put him, it'll be good. So I think the argument of who's going to build a better team around him, I mean, MPH and Jerry are both very good GMs, so I don't think that's really going to be the issue. But what impressed me a lot about Tim Drake was that he shot very efficiently last year. He shot 42% from threes, 81% on his free throws, 45 from field goals. So I find when you shoot efficiently, it shows that you know like when you should be shooting. I think his turnovers. Also, actually, I should mention that he had 2 steals a game, which is a lot. Like that's a lot of steals. I mean, the league leaders usually get maybe 2.4, and this is from a 17-year-old, and he's got almost twice as many steals a game as Moore does already. I think that the turnovers will drop with time. I mean, he's 18. I think maybe by his next TC, his handling could go up, and he could handle just as good as Moore, if not better. Let's see what else. Yeah, I mean, he's efficient. He's also got a lot of good young talent around him, just like Moore does. So I don't think either of them will. You can't really use an argument of, Moore's going to have a better supporting cast or Drake's going to have a better supporting cast. I think both of them are probably going to end up with pretty good supporting members around them. But I find Drake is more efficient in his scoring. He's younger, which is still invaluable. Those 2 years are invaluable because by the time he's Moore's age, he's already going to have had 4 TCs, and he could look like significantly better than Moore does now. Moore's already 20. So, and yeah, I think Tim Drake will have the better career over the long term because he still went up last TC, and he's just going to keep getting better.
All right, Tyler, you mentioned that Moore like he's better right now, but the problem is that he's also 2 years older. I mean, Moore last year was, I think, B+ handling, just like Drake is B+ handling right now, which is, I mean, it's kind of unfair to say Moore is better than Drake right now because he's had an extra training camp and he's also 2 years older. So, but overall, I think you made the better argument than Hodge because you mentioned much more about his style of play. Like right now, Moore's play last year greatly triumphed Tim Drake. So that's the big thing you can go on as far as future success and after the training camp that he had. So Tyler wins this one.
Goddamn Robin. Screwing me over.
All right. This is a big one. Hodge needs to win this one to force question 11.
Oh boy.
This is gonna take maybe a little bit of research. So. And I had to throw in the last guy, even though it makes no sense now. But if you want to pick him, then that's all right. Who goes first here, Hodge?
Yeah. Hodge
yeah.
says.
Okay. Which free agency departure has or will have the biggest impact in EBL? Omar Thomas to Houston, Anthony Jones to Oklahoma City, Adrian Cool to Atlanta, or Song New to Dallas?
Okay.
The biggest impact on teams, like everything in EBL.
Okay. I'm gonna pick Anthony Jones. I feel that Jones was a little bit overshadowed with Memphis because he had so much great talent around him that he didn't get the same, opportunities to show just how dominant a player he could be. He's always shot very well. His handling is underrated. He's got a good assist to turnover ratio. He's obviously capable of scoring. He's a very good defender. He's gets around 2 steals a game, which is good for a defender. He scores a lot, and I think as in a league where guards are I feel like that's always going to be the most important position. I mean, it's as much as it's good to have a great center or like Song Niu or Omar Thomas. Ultimately, I find that these leagues are won by small forwards, shooting guards, or point guards, or preferably a combination of 3 of them that are really good. I also feel that adding Jones has really helped OKC a lot, and obviously they've added a lot of other good pieces around him, and I think he's in a much better situation with Oklahoma City. He's got a very good GM in Baldwin that is going to surround him with more really good talent. I mean, he's already surrounded him with a lot of very good talent, whereas the other guard to pick from, Adrian Cool, not that WC is a bad GM, but he's starting Parker Jackson Cartwright at small forward, so that's a bad sign. Also, Westbrook is old. He's going to be gone. And it seems like Atlanta's just been in traction with Cool, whereas I feel like Oklahoma City is just going to keep going up. Jones is only 23. Well, I mean, I guess all the guys that moved were young, but is he younger than Thomas? No, he's the same age as Thomas, but I mean, he's the same age as Thomas. But I'm always going to feel that guards are more important to winning titles than centers. You can find big men a lot easier than it's hard to find an elite guard, and I think Anthony Jones could be an elite shooting guard in this league.
All right, Tyler, go ahead.
For me, I've got to say Song New. I wanted to say Adrian Cool, but New Orleans has been just as good as they were that year they had Cool than they are now without him. And I think even though the Dallas team, Dallas was the one that got him originally. But I think Washington having him now is, even though they're not the best team right now, I think if they keep Song New, he's going to be the biggest difference maker. I mean, what it comes down to is Song New doesn't look the best on paper, but he is constantly regarded as one of the best big men in the league. I mean, he could play center, he could play power forward if you needed him to. I'm sure he could play a little bit of small forward with his outside. And it just seems like he wins, and he gets these ridiculous stats that he shouldn't get, and his defense is higher level than it should be for B+. And when I look at these other guys, it's not so much I'm trying to make a case for Song New as it is that I don't see exactly how these other guys are going to affect their other teams leaving. It's like a player like Anthony Jones. I mean, he leaves Memphis, and Memphis is going to be fine. They already replaced him with Adonis Thomas, and they'll do just as good this year. A guy like Adrian Cool, like I said, the Hornets were already having more success than they did the year that they had Cool, and they're able to move on from that. Omar Thomas, I mean, he'll obviously make a difference in Houston, but I don't think he's the game changer that Song New is. I think Omar Thomas will give you shutdown defense, and he'll give you like 10 rebounds a game and a few points. But if you need someone to step up, I don't think he's that guy, and that kind of showed a little bit in this playoffs where he underperformed. Whereas every time Song New has been in the playoffs, every time Song New's done anything, it's always been he's the guy. He steps his game up in the playoffs, in the regular season, and he's always outperformed his attributes. And it'll be interesting to see him now that his outside has gone up. But, I mean, the guy is a career 17, 10.5 guy for someone who has never had the best attributes. He's averaged over 3.5 blocks per game for the last 3 seasons. He doesn't turn the ball over that much. His field goal percentage is right where you want it to be for someone like him. And he just has a long list of accomplishments. I mean, I could see Song New making an all-league first team, all-league defense team every season, whether he does or not. I just think if the Wizards can build around Song Nu, it'll have more success than Houston building around Omar Thomas. Despite ages, I think Song Nu is the best player, and I think him leaving Atlanta really hurt the most. So.
All right, Tyler, I really like your choice of Song Nu, but if you would have said one thing, you would have gotten the point. That was, I mean, the question was which free agency departure has or will have the biggest impact in EBL. That doesn't just mean like success on a team, but Song Nu signing with Dallas opened up the floodgates, and that had a huge impact on EBL.
Yeah, that's true.
If you would have mentioned that, I would have given you the point. But Hodge made a better argument about Anthony Jones and how he was overshadowing Memphis, and he's gonna probably have the biggest impact on Oklahoma City. So Hodge gets the point.
All right.
Yay!
What's the score now? What do we got?
Even
Tied
Stevens.
at 5. Yep.
Oh, so this is the winning question.
It's the lightning round.
This is a big one too. This is like you gotta open up your like 10 tabs maybe.
Oh no! All right.
That's good.
You might have to remember some things too. Okay.
My memory's awesome, so.
Yeah, I'm like an elephant. So.
Very good. This is basically like a bonus question, but this will decide it all. Who
All
is the best number one pick of all time?
Ooh.
And Tyler gets to go first.
You could pick Juan Johnson if you want.
If you could argue Juan Johnson, then I think that would be that'll get you the win.
I think if anyone could argue Juan Johnson, I would probably just quit the forum. So I mean, that would just be. There's really only like 4 options you can realistically go with. So let me. Well, like 5 maybe.
It's up to you. Whoever you want to pick.
I know.
Gotta make the argument.
I know the 2 that I'm gonna pick. So I got my options lined up.
Hold on. Let me try and decide between 2 real quick.
I didn't even look on the right team for one of them, so that's a good sign.
Promising. Hey, I just did the exact same thing, so.
There you
go. Let me look a little bit. Hold on.
It's L.J. Rose. Spoilers. Or good old Evan Turner from way, way, way back.
He's the only guy retired, best number one picks.
It's true. I liked Evan Turner though. I don't care what anyone said. I thought he was good.
That's what makes you so special, Hutch.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If I had to pick his best number 1 overall pick of all time, the only one that you can realistically go with is Karan Iverson, and it is because he is not only the best number 1 overall pick of all time, he's one of the best EBL players of all time. I mean, he's won 2 championships. He's constantly above 25 points per game. He's actually never averaged under 23 points per game in his career. And the first time he did that was last season when he was 29 and surrounded by other elite scorers. I just think with Karan Iverson, you get a level of that's above everyone else. I mean, when Karan came out, everyone knew he was going to be a special player, and he's showed that throughout his career. His career field goal percentage is 47%. His career three-point percentage is 42. His career free throw percentage is 78. I mean, just everything about him screams superstar. 6 rebounds a game for someone who has C rebounding throughout his career. It's just his level of play has been dominant every single season. I mean, those 2 championships he won with the Lakers, he was the guy. If you take Karan Iverson and replace him with almost anyone else, it's not the same result. It's not the same success that they have. It was because of him and his accomplishments throughout his career. You know, all-league first team, all-league second team, all-league third team, 2 championships, playoff MVPs, whatever. He's always been the guy. Whereas, I mean, some of the other number 1 overall picks, I mean, they've had good careers. You can make an argument for Adrian Cool. You can make an argument for Wiggins. You can make an argument for, whatever. But none of them have ever been the guy on a championship team like Karan Iverson is. And Karan Iverson led his team to 2 straight titles, the first player in the first team to ever do that. And his accomplishments are just go beyond anyone else. You can make an argument for him for top 5 player overall in EBL, much less number 1 overall draft pick. So I think to go with anyone else besides Karan Iverson, when he has had the success in the regular season, awards, and postseason, I can't see anyone else being better than him.
Okay, go ahead, Osh.
All right, I'm gonna go with Andrew Wiggins, and not just because he's Canadian. Uh, okay, I think an underrated part of Andrew Wiggins' game that a lot of people tend to overlook is that he's an outstanding rebounder for his position. He has 350 career double doubles. I mean, that's like a power forward numbers. I know that he's not the scorer at the same level that Karan Iverson is, but he's had years where he's had two back-to-back years where he scored 27 points a game. I mean, he's just barely like a decimal point from getting 20 points a game. But he's so much more versatile in his skills. He's a far better passer than Karan has been his entire career. He's always been an incredible defender, and not just a small forward, but you could put him in multiple positions, and he'd probably still be a great defender if that's the way you wanted to do it. He's won 3 titles, and he might not have been the guy, but I would argue he was maybe a 1A or a 1B on at least 2 of those title teams. Well, or at least the first one. I can't remember exactly who he won it with, but that pretty much sums it up that I remember Andrew Wiggins won it. I think he's got far more well-rounded talent than Karan. He's won more playoff games probably than anyone in the history of EBL by far. And I mean, obviously it helps when you spend a lot of time with Denver, but he just wins a lot. I think, but ultimately, definitely for me, my biggest selling point is that his rebounding, and I find rebounding is an incredibly important stat, and it helped his Denver team so much for him to provide that extra 10 or 9.5 rebounds a game, that probably pushed those teams further than almost anything else that they had on a lot of those great Denver teams that he was on. I mean, he's a great playmaker, which Karan, he can score better, but he can't make as many plays. Wiggins has been incredibly efficient. He's shot over 41% his entire career from 3 points, in addition to shooting very good field goal percentages. And I think that while he doesn't have as many awards or all league, all-star games or whatever as Karan, he has more titles, he's won more playoff games, and I feel that he might have been just as important for Denver for a long time, whereas Karan started off very hot, but his later years with the Lakers were very poor teams. His time with the Kings, Timberwolves, Thunders, and Celtics have all been just not good playoff teams at all, whereas Wiggins is basically, I mean, I know he spent his whole career with Denver, but he won every time. He always won in the playoffs. And I think that'll continue with the Magic. You'll see this year he'll keep winning in the playoffs. So that's why my argument is that Wiggins is probably the best number 1 overall pick of all of the ones that we've had.
All right, Tyler, you said that Curran, he was the guy on his title teams. That is not necessarily true because, I mean, he won 2 titles, but he never even won a playoff MVP. So you could argue that Westbrook or Lorenzo Play was the guy on that team. But Curran he definitely peaked early. Like, he hasn't been the same since he left the Lakers, while Andrew Wiggins is getting better as the time goes on. And Haj, you made a really, really good point about Wiggins being a better all-around player. Like, Curran's a better scorer, obviously, but Wiggins has always been a better rebounder, passer, and defender. And I think this is close, but I'm gonna award this final one to Haj.
Yes.
All right.
So Haj wins.
Very nice.
And Haj, you get your 2 minutes here to talk about whatever you want.
So I think after these TCs.
Oh no.
Shut up, Tyler. You can't talk.
If we updated the site immediately after, I mean, you could still give out the results, but it's so fast to update the site that if we did it fast enough, people could, you could figure out how your guys did after the TC right away instead of having to wait. But enough about that. Let's see, what else can I talk about? I think Washington is a very underrated team. I think people ignore the historical significance of the fact that I've led my team to more playoffs than any other East GM, and that cannot be underrated. Active East GM. Obviously, Mofo and Josh have been to more playoffs than me. But as far as active East GMs, none have been to more playoff series than me. And despite the fact that I have the worst playoff winning percentage, probably by far, and certainly of teams that have played like 100 games in the playoffs, I think consistency is an underrated attribute for good GMing in EBL. And I think that's probably my 2 minutes, and I've pretty much ran out of things to say.
That was actually 1 minute, so you can
You can double that if you want.
you have like 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
You guys should all visit the diary forums. They're excellent. There's some good stuff going on in there. Some sort of a website mafia of some kind. Baraka's coaching legend, which is quite good. Ron's got a nice little WWF thing going on. And you know what? People should just post on the board in general, It's good to keep activity going and, immerse ourselves as a community together. Because it's like we're all friends in the end. Has it been 30 seconds yet? Because I really didn't have any.
It's been 2 minutes. Good job, Josh.
Thank you.
It's 2 minutes too long.
All right, I think
I also would have lost if I'd known that was going to happen.
If I would have known that was going to happen, I would have made better arguments. So.
If I would have known that was going to happen, I would have took LJ Rose as my pick.
All right, guys. Good and interesting podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, fun to
I'm
do.
looking forward
Maybe
to
we
12.
can make this a thing where we try and change up the preseason podcast every year. So
all right,
try and figure out different
or we
ideas.
Could do a couple of maybe just a best of 3 for future podcastery, mini
we'll
ones.
see. This is definitely a fun idea. Props to Mofo for coming up with it.
Very good idea.
Yep.
All right,
everybody. This has been preseason special bonus edition.
Post
Thank
your
you
rosters,
for listening.
or I will slap you in the face.
Post your rosters.
Even Baldwin posted one.
yeah, that's a big sign right there.
All right, guys.
See ya.
All listeners, thanks for joining.
Adios.